This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
Ira, for a second time, how are you doing, my friend?
So this means I get overtime now. I'm doing fine then.
There's that, we can always get plenty of Ira. We never get enough Ira, so it's always a good thing when we have you on.
I wish my wife would say the same, Big O, but I'm glad you embrace me. So that's
yes, I have the same issue, my friend. I have the same issue. She's like, really? Do you have to leave that studio? You can stay there. The other 4 rooms in the house will be just fine, So yeah,
and I got to tell you, because you remember, I really didn't travel for a year and a half. So it used to be with my wife, when you coming home. Now it's like, when you going on the road? So, a trip to Indiana at the end of the week, next week to Brooklyn, not the end of the world. But this Heat schedule to start the season is so road intensive. That there's 2 ways to look at it. Of course, they're starting at home on Thursday against the Bucks. So do you want to sort of work the kinks out with the road games where you can load up on home games later? Or are you afraid it puts the record south and all of a sudden you're chasing yourself, so that the older players have to play a little bit more? So there's an immediate test for the Miami Heat this season. So road intensive from the get-go, a West Coast trip, the second week of the season where they go out to Denver, then they play the Lakers, they play the Clippers, they go out there, they play the Suns. So it's going to be challenging for them at the outset. Are they ready? Do they have enough? You've seen what I've written at Ask Ira. I'm still concerned about backup point guard because I'm always concerned about backup point guard. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. But you know what? To address that, I don't mind the tough start early on. Why? Because you've got a lot of veterans that are going to help this team, and those guys will be prepared for these kind of moments. If it was a really young team, then I'd rather them start at home to build up the confidence. But I think a team like this, plus the ending of last season, I think adds a little spice to everything for them. I think it was a little bit of a wake-up call the way they ended last season, because they probably thought a little higher of themselves. Now they ended up losing to the actual NBA champion, so right. It's not all lost. But I think a team this mature and still hurting from that first round exit, I think it's all the motivation in the world to start strong. Plus, look at Tyler Hero. I think out of the young guys, he's the guy that's going to lead the charge in saying, man, I want to start strong and I want to establish myself right away.
I would put it this way, and that's a very good point you made. I think every one of the Heat's young players is better. I think Bam Adebayo was better. He worked on his offensive inclinations. He worked on his body. Tyler Hero's clearly better because he hit the sophomore slump last year. Let's not argue about that. It's not debatable. Duncan Robinson is better because he figures out the game a little bit more every year in the league. Yes, teams are adjusting to him. Smart kid. He's adjusting to them. So you have that also. Max Strus is better, another one of the young players. So what you're doing is you're getting a nice maturation from your young players, and you're just telling your veterans, just be typically consistent. Be who you are, Kyle Lowry. Be who you are, Markieff Morris. Be who you are, PJ Tucker, and I think they'll be fine.
I'm with you. There. Remember, you can follow him on Twitter at Ira Heatbeat for those of you that are on the podcast listening to the interview. All right, Ira, just out of curiosity, Ira, and I know it happens a lot, but when the Dolphins go in the shitter, do you notice more traffic on the Heat side, or does that not affect it whatsoever? I'm wondering because, normally it's, all right, well, we'll wait for basketball season in January and February where things start to pick up a little bit. We'll focus on football. But the football teams are kind of out of the mix already as it is. So I'm wondering, when those kind of things happen, do you see more traffic on the Heat side because we become such a basketball town?
It's interesting, anger is a much stronger emotion than joy, unfortunately, in our society and for sports fans. So I think when people get fired up with their anger, you've seen it already from the comment section and some of the stuff you've read, that remains pretty strong. So I think what's going to happen is the interest will wane on the football teams as soon as the season's over, when they realize all is lost. I think right now there's such a high degree of anger for both of our football teams in our market that the interest there is pretty strong because people want an outlet to vent. They can vent here every day on the Big O Show. They can vent on your chat board. They can vent at the Sun Sentinel. They can vent at Omar Kelly. So I think short term, there's still that football interest because there's still that football almost vitriol at the moment about what's going on. The Heat, I think, eased into a little bit more. It used to be when the Dolphins weren't terrible, Pat Riley would tell us. He'd sit down there when he was coaching in January and saying, okay, it's our time now. This was all the warm-up. We understand. You had the Dolphins. You had the Hurricanes. You had your football season. Now we take over. We step to the fore. I think people have noticed the Heat a little bit more. I think people who were the 50-50s about going out, to see the Canes play on a sweltering Saturday might go, yeah, I don't think so as much. I'll just be at home when the Heat game starts at night, and a little bit more like that. So I think you see it grow, but I'm not going to lie. Just like, and you know this because when we decided to start doing the show, you even told me we have to be on in the summer. We have to do the off season. Yeah. People want change. Free agency is sometimes bigger than the season. That's what people want. They want the personnel stuff. Even now, the Heat have not played a single game. They've had a good off season, but yet you see it, Ask Ira at sunsentinel.com. People, do we have enough for point guard? What's going on at power forward? We don't have enough depth there. So, I mean, fans, God bless them. They always want something more. They want something more when the Dolphins and Canes are craptastic. They want something more when the Heat are good, but not great. So I think that's sort of the driver for the fans. It's not necessarily what you are now. It's their belief of what you could be next.
And by the way, Pat Riley has made us such a basketball town that our numbers, even when the Heat aren't in the playoffs, are great watching the NBA, the rest of the NBA. Yeah. So we've not only embraced our own team, we have embraced the entire sport, which again, that's just an incredible tribute to Riley and that organization.
And that's because you've established an interest. So in other words, sure, there's Lakers interest here. People here want to see LeBron James fail. They just do. Then you have Heat players who move on. Hey, what's Kendrick Nunn going to do with the Lakers? What's Trevor Ariza going to do? And also, at least when you're in contention, and I'll relate this a little bit more to the Canes, when you're in contention, the other teams matter. You want, say, the Nets when they're not playing the Bucks to lose. You want the Bucks to lose. You want to sort of, of course, the Knicks always to lose. Just like the Canes, no matter even when they were mediocre at that height, we would stand there, look at the Coastal Division and say, okay, if Georgia Tech loses this, and I hope that North Carolina loses this because they're playing a team in the other division, so it doesn't matter. So that's what keeps your interest. When you're terrible, it doesn't matter. In other words, I'm a Giants fan. It doesn't matter what the Eagles or the Cowboys do. The Giants are just terrible, so that's over for me. So I think with the Heat, there's going to be a lot of interest, especially in the Eastern Conference, because, you've seen the Heat everywhere from number 3 in the East projected to some projecting them at number 6 or number 7. Today was fascinating. ESPN.com put their expert predictions. Now, some of the guys are just bloviators, so I don't even read what they say. They're just trying to make a point. But I think you would agree that Bobby Marks is among the most level-headed ESPN analysts. He gives you the numbers. He gives you the reasons. He's picking the Heat to go to the NBA Finals. He's picking the Heat possibly to win the NBA championship. He knows. He's a former Brooklyn Nets, New Jersey Nets executive. So when I saw that this morning, I was going, whoa, I only have the Heat for 45 wins this season. Maybe I'm a little bit off. There's such a wide projection on the Heat. I'm sure you'll see that in your chat also on your YouTube channel there, is that people are all over the place. We don't know. And matter of fact, I'm going to put it back on you because I like to interview the Big O twice a week here on the Acura Pembroke Pines Report. Regular season, which way do you think the Heat will go? Protect their players for the playoffs, even if it means a slightly lower seed, or screw it. We're the Heat. We had an offseason. We want to get the highest possible seed. We're going to push these guys. We only have 3 seasons of Kyle Lowry. That's why when I was doing my prediction, I originally thought, well, they have the look of a 50-win team, but will they try to be a 50-win team? And that's why I dialed it down a little bit.
Well, you know what? I hate to say this, but I think it's going to be a little bit of both. I think they've got to go balls out, and because they don't want to be at the bottom of that playoff bracket. So I think they got to go balls out and they got to go up top. Now, if it's a matter of killing yourself between 3, 4, and 5, maybe they'll say, I'd rather rest somebody. but I think they're going to kill themselves to make sure they avoid 6, 7, and 8 is what I think they're going to
Yeah,
do.
and I hope that's the case. So it
That's kind
might
of
be a
a little bit of
matter
both.
of, like we talked about, get some wins early so you're not chasing your tail late. You and
Right.
I know we were on the air. We were at the other station talking about when they played Boston the final week of the season, how they had to win both games. That was a lot of pressure on them. God bless them. They came through. They got the victories. Jaylen Brown was out for the Celtics. They avoided that number 7 seed. Not that it helped. We're playing Milwaukee in the first round. And I think the lesson because of Milwaukee in the first round was don't get 6 either. They could be a pretty good team at 3. It could be the Celtics. It could be the Sixers. And you'll be a road team also. So try to get at least to that 4 or 5. And you remember this. The Heat finished 1 game out of the 4 or 5. If they won 1 more game against the Hawks last season, they would have been home court. They would have been the number 4 seed. I think the line of the margin of error can still be this thin this season, not just because the Heat are less than we think. I think the East is good. I think the Nets, screw Kyrie Irving. If you have a team with Kevin Durant and James Harden, you have a contender. If you have a team like Milwaukee with everyone but PJ Tucker coming back, you have a contender. I personally think Boston upgraded by getting rid of Kemba Walker and getting rid of Evan Fournier, bringing in Al Horford, bringing in Dennis Schroeder, and the maturation of Tatum and Brown. I think Boston's going to be very good. My wild card in the East, I'll get into this a little more tomorrow on Pallet Rock City Inside the Paint with Clay Ferraro, is I'm not sure what to make of the Hawks. I'm not sure if all that talent is just a lot of stuff, sort of a gumbo that tastes good together, or is it going to be Trae Young so ball dominant trying to be a star that they don't achieve their team potential? Atlanta to me is the wild card. Atlanta to me could be 3. Atlanta to me could be 6. And the Heat are going to be fighting all those teams because of it. There will be so many meaningful games for the Heat. When we come on twice a week on our Acura Pembroke Pines report, you're going to tell me, Ira, big game against Milwaukee, big game against the Hawks, big game against the Nets, big game against the Celtics. And, isn't that what you want? Compared to Dolphins, crappy game against the Hawks, crappy game against the Jets, there will be so many meaningful games for the Heat this season.
Yeah, I'm with you there. By the way, speaking of screw Kyrie, just out of curiosity, just what's your professional guess on this? Brooklyn and Milwaukee play tonight.
Mm-hmm.
But let's just talk about over the next couple of weeks that they're missing Kyrie because of all this vaccine mess. If they're not playing well and things are going bad, is there any chance that the frustration grows that much more against Kyrie because of, I still think they're going to win a lot of games with those 2 stars and the team they have, because they do have a pretty good team and they've got some really nice role players actually around those guys. So I still think though, but what happens if things go awry in Brooklyn and Kyrie's, in Kyrie's world?
I think it's interesting, though. Teams have so many specialists. They have strength and weight conditioning coaches. They have team nutritionists. They have analytic team people. I almost think the Nets need a team epidemiologist, and they need to read the tea leaves on COVID. Because what if the restrictions do ease in New York in December, in January? What if New York's new mayor comes up with a different plan where he says, hey, it's a private team. As long as you keep them away from the fans, keep them the hell away from the fans, we could make it work. So I think the Nets have to read the tea leaves. I think the Nets have enough talent. It's older talent with Blake Griffin, LaMarcus Aldridge, Paul Millsap. They can survive a month or 2. So I think the Nets almost need a separate team on the side to say, okay, Kyrie's not getting vaccinated. You can call him obstinate. You can call him foolish, whatever you want. But will the rules change? Will the pandemic change? Is there another Delta out there? Or come, we all hope, come January, February, there's such normalcy. New York says, you know what? We're going without the vaccination thing. That's what the Nets have to figure. Now, if it gets worse, and I'm not wishing that on anyone, then I think the Nets have to say, we can't waste the season. James Harden's getting a year older. Kevin Durant's getting a year older. Blake Griffin, LaMarcus Aldridge, and Paul Millsap are aging by the hour. Then I think they consider a trade. I think the trade deadline, I think it's February 10th this year, will come at the perfect time. That's when the Nets can see, one, have they survived without Kyrie? Are they desperate without Kyrie? Have the rules of the COVID game changed? I think that's when they make a decision. The other part of it is because, this goes back for you and me since, even before the soccer stadium, we were always talking about the flightiness of a Kyrie Irving and whether you would trade for him, because what are you getting? Because
Right.
who's
Yeah.
to say the next time there's a controversy, he's going to walk out of that room? Remember, he was trying to lead the walkout during the bubble. We all agree with the Black Lives Matter campaign and what it meant and the importance. And he was talked into it by the players saying, no, we'll stay here. We'll make a statement. That's how it played out. So he was ready to move on from basketball then. Then with COVID, he's ready to move on for it then. So who's to say he doesn't find another cause? And when he finds his next cause, he walks out on his next team. I'd be really careful. I'd almost rather trade for Ben Simmons because as much as he could be, I guess the word is petulant a little, I can deal with petulant. I brought in Anthony Mason. I made him work. I made him an all-star here with the Heat. Pat Riley did so he could make that work. Man, a team that trades for Kyrie, that's the ultimate example, Big O, of caveat emptor.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. And now that they're not going to give him that extension, you just wonder how much that relationship starts to sour overall.
It always sours the Kyrie. It soured in
Right.
Cleveland. It soured in Boston. It soured in
Right.
Brooklyn. It soured at Duke when he barely played and left after the 1 year. So when doesn't it sour? And I know you're going to come in right now because I know that you go to the temple of Pat Riley and you'll say, well, Pat Riley will make it different. I'm not so sure.
No, not with him. No,
Right.
not with him.
I'm not
With
so
Ben
sure
Simmons,
that this,
yes.
yeah.
With Ben Simmons, yes, actually. I believe that the Heat are one of the few organizations that can kind of fix him, not fix him to the point that he's shooting threes, but fix him to the point that he would shoot mid-range jumpers and nail free throws and things like that. I do believe that they can reach Simmons. I don't think anybody reaches Kyrie. Kyrie is in another plateau all by him. It's like, somebody just brought up Kyrie and Kanye West about the same thing, and I kind of get it. Not that I want to make fun of any kind of mental issues, but
Exactly.
there's something there with Kyrie that just doesn't jive. With Simmons, I think it's just a lack of maturity, actually. I think it's just he's afraid. I think we all are afraid of all kinds of things in life. Becoming parents, doing whatever it is that we do in
No,
life we all get nervous.
He has the basketball yips,
Yeah,
right now. He doesn't have that
yeah,
confidence. Confidence could be restored.
right.
Stability is a lot harder to restore. I agree.
Yeah, yeah. It's a Willie Burton, from back in the day. That was a young man that also kind of had his issues. What was that? What was that whole? What there was a story that he like stood up on the bench one day in the middle of the game and said the world is falling on me or something, and guys were kind of like freaking out, like,
Yeah,
whoa, really?
and again, thankfully, mental health is in a lot different place right now, and
Yeah,
the NBA
yeah,
has unbelievable programs, as do all the sports, and we have to give them credit for that
yeah.
also.
We didn't have patience in those days. In
No,
those
we didn't
days,
know.
we were
We didn't know.
very insensitive.
There was a
Yeah,
societal ignorance then that there isn't now, and the leagues are working more toward that. And that's the thing. Everyone is trying to embrace Kyrie, and they always have. Kevin Love came out, with his mental illness and what it meant and what he would try to do when Kyrie was a teammate. It wasn't good enough. The Celtics reached out to him. The Nets have reached out to him. So at some point, also, you have to say, if someone's not going to accept that help, we've seen it in the NBA with the substance abuse recidivists. To a certain point, where you just have to say, we try to help as much as we can, but we're also a business and we have to move on.
Ira, is there anything that we should know about for fans or anything in the arena this year? Have the Heat changed anything? It looks like it's a full go, full arena, everything else, right?
Yeah, it's a full go. There is no vaccine mandate because of where we live. There cannot be a vaccine mandate in the state of
Right.
Florida. There'd be fines for that. There is a mask mandate, except when you were eating or drinking at your seat. So, I'm going to be honest here. So if you're holding a cocktail, you're not going to have your mask on. So if people
Of
are
course not.
sensitive to that, just know that you're in an indoor facility. They have the upgraded filters. They're doing what they can. They're basically trying to work with the best they can. Personally, I believe, based on his social media and how Mickey Harrison has been such a vaccine advocate, if they could have a vaccine mandate, I believe the Heat would have one. But you
Oh
can
yeah.
only fight City Hall, or in this case, State Hall, so much, and you just move forward. So I don't think this is a Heat thing. I think if the Heat could, there would be a vaccine passport for Heat games. Everyone would feel more
I agree.
comfortable. But because of the state we're in and the state we're in, you just have to work with the best of the rules you can. I would say this, the Heat are doing the best they can. The Heat have opened their outdoor plazas. So for those who want to go out at halftime or during a break and get some fresh air and get away from it, the arena there, just like with the Panthers outdoor plaza, does afford you that also. So you can sort of get a break if you need to. But they're trying to work through it. So far, it's worked well in the preseason. We know the crowds will be bigger there. They're doing everything they can from what they're allowed to do.
Yeah, and of course we have our folks that need a nicotine break too. Ira, the injury list, is it just Oladipo going into the game
Right now,
on
that's the
Thursday?
only injury. I'm headed down to practice in a few minutes. Markieff Morris, Dwayne Dedman, Udonis Haslem missed practice yesterday due to illness. Of course, the first thing you ask is COVID. The NBA very much, if it's COVID-related or protocol, has to say that in the injury report. The Heat have not said that. They just said cold-like symptoms, so they have done their check. I would expect all of them to be available, with the Heat only carrying 16, being able, including their two-ways, having to keep more than 15 in one more inactive. That'll be Victor Oladipo. And that'll be something now that you and I will start tracking more on a regular basis, because Victor Oladipo is so instrumental in this. If Victor Oladipo comes back at 75% Victor Oladipo, to me, it changes everything. If Victor Oladipo doesn't come back, then I think come the trade deadline, you might need that one more scoring defensive wing piece. So we really wait on Vic, pretty much just doing shooting, running through some light drill work. I saw him on the elliptical yesterday. He's working hard, but no real basketball stuff yet to this point.
Dude, I love you, because you just led me right into the question that I wanted to ask you. So we wrap it up here. So Heat fans will know, since you're always concerned about the backup point guard and all those kind of things, you just mentioned it right now. If the Heat desperately need to make a trade at some point later on in the season due to whatever happened to their team, what is the flexibility that Miami has? What are the options that Miami has in order to make some kind of a trade?
Well, obviously they could trade a future pick. They have future seconds going out now, depending on the tampering thing and what the league takes away or doesn't. Adam Silver said yesterday that's ongoing, said there's no new update. Tax-wise, they will be in a much better position about mid-season or so to add a 15th standard player on the roster. So it could be as simple as Jeff Teague goes out of a game, another point guard who gets waived, Isaiah Thomas. The short Isaiah Thomas is still out there. That's a possibility.
Hell, he scored 80 points in a pickup game the other day.
Exactly. And also, all the free agents who signed in the offseason cannot be traded until December 15th. Duncan Robinson had such a huge raise, he can't be traded till January 15th. So the flexibility will be there later in the season. The Heat will get a read. I think for now they're going to play Tyler Hero more as a backup point guard. I was strongly against that to start camp, but he's been doing such a really good job. I was wrong. And maybe that's the answer. Look, I am an advocate in today's positionless basketball of get your best players on the court. So if you're getting more Tyler Hero and no Gabe Vincent, and it gets your best 9 players on the court, I have no issue. We know they're going to start with Adebayo, with PJ Tucker, with Butler, with Robinson, and with Lowry. We're figuring the next 3 off the bench are Markieff Morris, Tyler Hero, and Dwayne Dedman. Sure as heck looks like right now the 9th man is Max Strus. So if you're not going more than 9 deep, I want to play my 9 best players if I can contain opposing point guards. We shall see.
The Strus is loose.
Very much so. Had a good preseason, yeah.
What do you got going on the Sun Sentinel leading up to the opener, my man? Because there's always juicy stuff you put together.
2 things. First, we posted a very long takeout story on Bam Adebayo and all the behind-scene work he's done with Malik Allen. I spoke to Malik Allen, how he's worked with Andre Drummond on rebounding, Karl Anthony Towns when he was in Minnesota on his complete game, and he says that's what they're doing with Bam. It's been in the laboratory. It's a long story. It's already posted at sunsentinel.com. You can read that tomorrow in your Sun Sentinel. And today at 2 o'clock, Pat Riley's going to do a sit-down and sort of discuss the state of where things are, which is perfect timing because tomorrow here at 9 a.m., when I sit down with Clay Ferraro for Pallet Rack City Inside the Paint, we'll get to parse those Pat Riley comments. And then, of course, I'll be back at the end of the week with you on Friday, talk about the season opener, likely talk about more Pat Riley. So, you know what? It is getting real. We'll let the Dolphins make their excuses. We'll let the Heat offer the hope.
Yep. No, and the Panthers. Panthers and Heat, man, our winter teams are our saviors right now. Follow them on Twitter at Ira Heatbeat. More importantly, do the responsible thing. Support all of our local journalists, man. and support the folks at the Sun Sentinel. Subscribe there daily so you can get your local news and all the great sports there at the same time. Ira, thank you as always, my friend. We will talk again on Friday.
Friday on the Acura Pembroke Pines Report. Tomorrow morning with Clay Ferraro for an hour. Folks, get up early, 9 a.m., same spot, same station. Thanks, O.
That's right. Pallet Rock City Inside the Paint Show tomorrow. Clay Ferraro along with the legend that is Ira Winderman. And this has been your Acura of Pembroke Pines, Miami Heat, and NBA report.
This is the Big O Show.